the esteemed panelists for the very good introduction, because it's very directly into, they already mentioned MEF 88. What are we doing all that? First, there is a real need. Enterprise, and you probably know, press, etc. Security is not an afterthought or an IT problem anymore. It's a board member issue. There have been several times where acquisition were gravely reduced in price because of security breaches, reputation, etc. So security is not an afterthought. It's getting more and more complex because the people are using more and more interconnected services all over the place and changing everything all the time. And there is more regulation too. It's not only that there is regulations, there is more regulation. All that combines makes the security posture and having the right security skills, people, tools, process, etc., very complex and overwhelming. The good news is more and more of those enterprises use a lot of the same thing. Almost all of them use Office 365 or Salesforce or name it. As a service provider, you can grasp that complexity and use the automation to make it affordable. So you can really invest into securing many Office 365 deployments and reduce the price and provide a better service, a better security for a lower price. It's an opportunity. It's a very, very strong and large opportunity. A bit of definition of security as a service in general. It's an outsourced services. So an enterprise outsources their security to another company. There is a large number of those called MSSPs, Managed Security Service Providers, which Fortinet works a lot with. And we, as a company, are providing the technology. But then you need to turn that into a service to be able to do security as a service. So we help with providing the best possible technology for that, but then you need to provide it as a security as a service. And a lot of this comes from the networking. But in general, as I was just mentioning before, you can reduce the capital burden, simplify the cost, etc. You have predefined security services for most of your application, most of your thing, and then you can focus on the very specifics. With a massive shortage of skills in security, and which creates better salaries for them, but globally it's more and more complex for enterprise. So there is a very strong need for finding someone to help them. And as you all know, everyone moving things to the cloud, things of Salesforce, they move their pipeline to the cloud. So the enterprise are ready now to share critical information with suppliers. And security is a critical information. In terms of numbers and markets, you will read that, but that can be, it was already almost 60 billion in 2018. It's only growing. You also heard about GDPR regulation, etc. All those things makes unaffordable to not do security properly. So the demand for high-end security, very strong one with online banking is there. They usually want to do a lot of that themselves. And you have everything in between, but not doing security, not an option anymore, which makes the market for it even bigger and bigger. Security is broad, but security is everywhere. It's not one thing you do it's not just one firewall and then you're done. It can be the newest attacks are AI voice that mimics the CEO voice, calling accounting to make a transfer. So this is the type of things that can happen. So security is everywhere. It's in your pocket. It's in, if you, as soon as you connect, as soon as you have digital information, there is security involved. But here we really focus on this one, on network security, because we're talking at MEF, network operators, service providers. So this is really where the focus is. That doesn't mean the rest needs to be overlooked. It's really the focus of this group. So the group is called MEF 88, W is working in progress, application security for SD-WAN. Why did we start it there? Just a bit of background on why we end up here. For an end user, they see applications. Thanks to SD-WAN, they start to really understand that their service providers can really engineer the traffic in such a way that the application is more reliable, more available. The next natural step is to say, hey, can you secure it for me? You know that application, you know that traffic, you know that Office 365, you know that Salesforce. Please secure it for me. And this is where we started, because it can be an add-on services to the rest of the services. And it goes very well in the application concept created by SD-WAN. Before SD-WAN, you have layer 1 to 7. That's it. You don't know what an application is. Here, once we know an application, then you can map a service, a security service really dedicated to that application, which can, thanks to automation, be replicated and provide good value. And this is where Ralph, who was there just before, proposed us the zone use cases. It really comes from a security mindset. At a customer premise, the customer will see their own network behind the uni as multiple pieces and parts. They will have their data centers, their point of sales, their IoT devices, etc. All those things will probably be on separate networks. This is one of the key features of security, is you separate things to protect them better. So we introduced, and it's not that easy to grasp and mix the context of zone and applications. So we're working on that, and as mentioned before, we're working very closely with MEF 70.1 to align the security concepts and the routing application concepts so that the policy are consistent across the MEF different standards. The idea is really to be able to apply security functions dedicated to, example, the guest Wi-Fi. The guest Wi-Fi, it's pretty obvious you want internet breakout immediately and the lowest priority for the traffic. Maybe not if you're retail, but that's something else. And very low security posture for it. On the other side, for your intranet or your point of sales, you want a very strong security monitoring and actions. We also worked a lot on the middle box functions. One of the aspects when you go, once you have application steering, you define this traffic is an application. A lot of this is encrypted. For advanced security in the network, we can, if allowed by the customers, if trusted, decrypt and re-encrypt those traffics to be able to really check what's going on the wire and being able to provide advanced protections. One of them is a very obvious one, is data leak protections. If you start to see passwords leaking and your API keys to the clouds leaking to a random site, you know you're in trouble. But of course, it's a service definition. So this part needs to be part of the service definition itself. But it's not a service, so that's why we call it middle box functions. It's called middle box in the realm of encryption. When you create a TLS connections, those boxes are called middle box because man in the middle is usually associated with hackers, with someone you don't want. Here you want the middle box, so you can provide security service to your end customers. And they have to trust you. So there is a way to trust, and they have to trust you. It's not something you do without people knowing. We're really in the verge of pushing the document out, and we define a bunch of security functions that we want to be available on every services and part of the security policies. One is the DNS Protocol Filtering, different than the domain name filtering. So it's really to be able to define that you're going to check the DNS protocols, and some hackers use the DNS protocol to evade information, for example. So we really need to be able to check and protect the environments for non-wanted DNS usage. And then there is the DNS filtering, the domain name filtering, where some of those domain name end up in a botnet command and controls, and you want to block that. If you block it at the DNS resolution, you already make a very, very good posture compared to not having it. Then we can go further to do URL filtering. It's kind of the usual thing you will see at the edge when you protect a branch. Those are typical functions for those type of environments. Malware detection removal. If you heard about crypto mining or data breach, there is a malware coming in from somewhere, not necessarily a file, and we have ways to detect those, and sometimes even remove and reconstruct. So it really depends on the technology, but this is the type of functions that will be defined and available. Data leak protection. Again, you don't want to, when you do data leak protections, you don't want to check everything that looks like a password. You know what type of data can leak, and you want to have protect that. So you have to have in the definition of the data leak protections a list of things you want to check, or type of things you want to check. The famous network IDS/IPS detection, intrusion detection system, intrusion protection system. So it's really to check if you can see things coming in and out. If you're, we will have a demo at one of the MEF POC about that. So you're all invited to come and see it. And of course, once you detect something, you want to be able to notify your customers or the wholesale reseller of your services, etc. So we are working on defining what we call the compromise system notification based on indicator of compromise. So in the security realm, we have something we call indicator of compromise, and sometimes we mix the indication of a compromise, which is all the different things that make me sure there is a compromise. So all the evidence that this system is compromised, compared to the notification to someone else that there is a crypto mining here, which are different. So that's why we rename it that way, and try to standardize on this communication, which means when you end up buying a MEF certified security as a service, you know what the type of notifications, logs, etc. you will get. On the project schedules, was mentioned before, we had a very aggressive one. We had to push just a little bit, just a few weeks. So we target at the end of this member meeting, at the end of this week, to have a first call for comments on the document with a draft standard targeted in Q1.